there. So, I feel like it's time to express. Like, I'm totally blank on what I would even express about. I have recently passed up a couple invitations to do events, um, where I would do readings and stuff. And questioned, whether I was doing the right thing or not. Because I had already done that before and decided against continuing doing readings, but with recent invitations, I reconsider every time I get an invitation. I've got a message here. Oh, let's see. So I reconsidered and also came up with no thanks, as my answer. um, yeah, that's where I'm at. What is this? Oh, I'm just noticing something. Oh, SIM card holder. And it looked like it had the SIM card in it, but no, it's the one that I put in my son's phone recently. Okay, so let's do a reading. Is what it comes down to. We can do this kind of reading. I think it's all right. I know what to talk about then at least. I've been so. Please excuse my slurping if it bothers you. That's just how I do it with that cup. I've been so. It's the feeling of being ungrounded a bit lately. I always know when I'm ungrounded because on a day-to-day basis, how I operate is I know that I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. So I don't worry about remembering things or studying or, I live through my channel or whatever, if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I could elaborate, but I feel like it'll just be another sidetrack, and that's something that I notice happens a lot when I'm feeling ungrounded. That's one of the clues. Another clue is that information doesn't come right when I think I need it. Like I can't think of the word or, whatever. Or I forget something altogether. Like, oh, here I am at the grocery store because I'm giving someone else a ride to the grocery store. I know I needed stuff for the grocery store, but I can't remember any of it right now. You know? Um, Even though I do have a running list for the grocery store, so I could have just looked at my list, but didn't think of that either. Those kind of things, like really loopy, really like out of touch with what it is to be on Earth. That's what ungrounded feels like to me. Um, so one thing about being ungrounded, though, is it's easier to channel information. It's just like grounding it is an important step, and you don't want to be too ungrounded for too long because your physical body suffers for it. You really have to put in care to your physical body. So I did go for a swim yesterday and things like that. So I'm making the efforts that I need to make to help the situation, putting my feet on the earth a lot. Let's start with this reading here. North Node, 12th house. Obviously, I'm using my astrology oracle. If you're familiar with astrology and astrological terms, you'll know what those mean. If you're not, don't worry. I'm going to sum it up. Ophiuchus. Ophiuchus. Sinistry. Thetis. Now I'm experiencing that thing where, I know what this is. I I feel like this is referencing something and I can't recall it. Interesting. All right, come on. This is talking about someone not being who they seem to be. That's what this is talking about. A hidden enemy. But somehow it helps you towards your life's purpose or know what you're meant to do. Justitia, Venus, Leo, 17th harmonic, empathy, and minute. Something's just coming in right in the nick of time. Right in the nick of time. Hold on. Sorry, this is just one of those that's not just going to flow out of me. Okay, I'm going to pull it. I'm going to pull this. So it's a string that I can barely reach, but I am being downloaded. It's like I don't have quite the room to pull it, to have it flow, so I'm pulling it. This is just how I've done it sometimes. It may not be as appealing to watch, to be honest, and that's fine. It may be more for me than you. I'll probably share it anyway. Um, Back to pulling. Because there's something around nick of time. I watched a reader do something like this the other day, and it was so annoying to me, so that's kind of funny that I'm now experiencing it. Isn't that always the way? Um, it's not always the way, it's sometimes the way. Something about being accurate with your words, choosing them carefully. Ah, using your words carefully. Justice, Leo, Venus. Feeling that something is different on the inside than it's being shown to you on the outside. There's pride on the outside. Have you ever been in a situation where you just got this glimpse of something and then it goes away? It's happened to me a couple times with two different people where I got this glimpse of their face as a different face. And it was like me flashing to other lifetimes. I've just realized that. I did not know that for a while. I just knew that it was like showing me something that was normally hidden. But now I'm realizing, oh, what I was being shown was their face in another lifetime when I experienced them. Oh, it was the karma. The karma was living out in this lifetime. The karma was being shown to me in this lifetime in a way that came from the other lifetime with these two particular people on different occasions, maybe similar karmas or but different, and it was flashed in the nick of time. There was a nick in time, and I was flashed to the other lifetime, which was revealing because it's relevant to what's going on. Okay, let's acknowledge that there's karma in the situation playing out. I think one of them's already resolved, so I'm going to go to the other one, the more recent one, even though it was still 3 years ago. There was because that cycle is was an ongoing cycle, continued on. It was 2 years prior to that, and okay. So anyway, acknowledge that there was a karmic pattern, validate that in that moment I was shown, I want to say it was Hephaestus. It's the one that's known in the mythologies to be so-called ugly, that Aphrodite married. Hephaestus. I'm not sure how to say his name, but his face flashed. He did actually marry someone else. He fell in love, left Aphrodite, and married someone else. I'm pretty sure. Justice. I keep having the feeling that there's true love here, which feels weird if there's someone wearing a mask and someone leaving someone else. I guess it would depend on why he left Aphrodite. I think he was lured away. Oh, he was lured away. Aphrodite didn't care about his looks. He was lured away. So he gave into something of a lower nature. The hidden enemy. It's like in this lifetime, it wasn't interesting to me enough to pursue it. In this lifetime, oh, pride. Pride didn't want me to pursue it. My curiosity definitely wanted me to pursue it. My pride was like, no, we are not digging in to the business of someone who is not being who they really are to our face. Well, my own pride didn't want me to dig into it. I did try to uncover it, but with my pride in the way, I didn't go about it in a way that was vulnerable. And vulnerability was the key. Wow. I faked vulnerability at one point because I knew vulnerability was the key. Yes. They tried to tell me this. They tried to tell me vulnerability was the key, but I couldn't let myself feel truly vulnerable, so I just revealed information about me that made me vulnerable. But it wasn't, it was just like a more reckless than actually vulnerable. Yeah, I made myself vulnerable, but not in a heart-based way. Yeah, holy shit. Okay, so if you can relate to the story, take it. But basically, the story so far is there was a karmic pattern carried over to this lifetime. Vanity, I want to say, but okay. Pride was mistook for vanity. Pride was mistook for vanity. Like one party had pride and the other party took it as vanity. Either way, it caused another to doubt and then to be lured away because of their own insecurities, because they couldn't stand up to vanity. They could have stood up to pride, but they could not stand up to vanity. And they chose to allow themselves to go in another direction. They could have stood up to pride, but they couldn't stand up to vanity. It's just so weird. I mean, I'm not judging, okay? I'm just like letting it open. No wonder this is not something that was readily available to me that I could just download and want to know about, because yeah, there's no part of me that wanted to know this, because the prideful part of me is like, what am I going to do with this? The only thing I could do is like be like, swallow my pride, be humble, and go have a conversation. But that there's just no part of me that will do it. It's been years, you know. But maybe the understanding that I have of it will allow me to break the pattern and go forward without it, because obviously it's lost for this lifetime. True love is lost for this lifetime. Oh gosh. Whew. Love isn't enough. It's not true. It's not true. Love is enough. Love is. Oh. I'm starting to feel the feelings of the one who walked away thinking that their looks were an issue. Oh, that's a bad feel. It doesn't feel good. But they're in a place where they would never go either. That's pride too. They have pride too. Ugh. Pride, the great divide, or pride, the great divider. Great divider. So true, not just in this situation, but anywhere pride is. If two people are having a disagreement because they have opposite perspectives of something, it doesn't have to be an argument or a divider. If both people are able to accept the other's perspective for that as being valid for them. And pride takes things too personal sometimes, acts as if they have to be the one that's right, or they have to be like, even the fact that pride assumed that they had to be right, and even if they are proven where it's valid for the other person to have their perspective, pride might feel too hurt to even admit it and would rather go wallow or be on its own rather than humble itself sometimes. Messy. Oh, I feel so tired tapping into that. Just makes me want to nap. Yeah, this pattern is big and huge, and I must not be the only one who's ever tapped into it, because that a lot of people came here to break this pattern of pride being the great divide. And it happens not just in love relationships, in friendships, it happens in workplace, it happens amongst communities, it happens with siblings, teachers, students, professionals, neighbors. Pride is the great divide. If you look at the scale of frequency for emotions, you can see pride is in the middle, and it is the dividing factor between the lower realm and the upper realm. You need courage to get out of pride to go up into the upper realm. And if you go down to the lower realm, you just loop infinitely in the lower density, sort of hellish ways to experience life. So courage is the answer. And yeah, when I say, oh, I would never go have this conversation, courage would be the thing that allowed me to have the conversations. And I've had courage before, but I think there's a part of me that went, Yeah, I've already tried that, but like I said, I didn't try it with heart based vulnerability. Tried it with strategic vulnerability. Go, if I offer this piece of information, then they'll feel comfortable because I've revealed something about myself. That's strategy. That is not heart based vulnerability. Heart based vulnerability is something that I've never utilized in this situation. Oh my God, you know what just flashed to me? In the first situation where somebody's mask slipped and I was shown in one flash another face of theirs, I can remember before that relationship ended, there was one moment there I did have heartfelt vulnerability. I remember being like, I was just at the end of my ropes and I was just like pouring my heart out and just kind of saying how I felt and being in gratitude also. Um, and as I expressed, I saw this person change completely. They melted and they came towards me and to hold me in the moment. And that had never happened in the 5 years of knowing them in a relationship where I longed for the intimacy of this person. That person responded to my heartfelt vulnerability. And everything else they did screwed me over, betrayed me, went behind my back. But they really did melt for that. Oh. And I didn't learn it. I just remember being shocked by it. I was probably scared at the fact that they were now like coming in close when we were on the brink of breakup. Scared to get my hopes up again, probably. Yeah, fear. Fear can close the heart, and then you can't access heart-based vulnerability when fear closes the heart. So you can't plan heart-based vulnerability. The only way to have it be there is to allow it to come out naturally. And that is to, eliminate the beliefs that the fears are, you know, something that's more important to hold on to than the openness. All right, is there anything else about this that I need to talk about or realize? Anything else? Yeah. Love it. That's from the Archangel Michael deck. The situation is already resolved. So, confirmation that that was it. That's the message. Pride is the great divide. Courage is what's needed to get out of pride, but also courage coming from a heart-based courage can lead you through and into a heart-based vulnerability. So what gets in the way of courage is fear, and also when you sink back into pride. So pride sits here, lower realms sit below it, and then courage is the step out of it. So to be vulnerable in a heart-based way, that does take courage, right? So courage is the step out. And so if you're not able to open your heart and be vulnerable and or have courage to do whatever the next step is, you look at that. What is the fear that's holding me back? Then alchemize that. Acknowledge it, validate why you have it, accept that you have it, be present with what it feels like, and then become the version of yourself through being present by not pushing away, not blaming it, not telling it needs to rush, not wishing, it on anyone else or projecting or denying, just like being with the feeling allows you to become the version of yourself that can handle and process and allow through that feeling. So then that fear or that feeling will never hold you back again. It will just flow through because you're the version of yourself that can handle it. You can still be courageous in the face of it. All right, so long way to get there, a little bit revealing about my personal experience, but I like when My own personal experiences are brought into it because I can make sense of things for myself too. You know, I don't always have it all figured out. I haven't put every puzzle piece of my life together yet, and which is fine. You know, I'm not nearly done living this life, so I've got a lot to do. And this is a uh, vital step along the process of what you're here to do. I want to say that, right? Like yeah, you got a lot to do here, but this is a major part of it because we had North Node there. Major part of it is to understand this. So what it's really talking about, which those of you who are intelligent enough to understand this probably already know this, but like uh, what it's really talking about is, I'm just to summarize, probably more for myself, just saying, um, is it's talking about the way you operate in life, meaning allowing and to proceed with the open heart, and the difference between strategically being vulnerable and actually being courageous enough to be heart-based vulnerable. You know, where appropriate. Your heart's going to know when it's appropriate or not, you know? When you're open-hearted, you're not going to go be vulnerable in the face of someone who will actually harm you. Because, oh yeah, I was feeling this this morning when I was watching a clip on an Instagram reel about some way someone was parenting. And I was thinking about how oh, I know, she was fake crying to see her baby's reaction, to see if her baby would comfort her. And I was thinking about how a lot of what we do as parents actually trains the child away from their own internal guidance system. Because basically what we're talking about here is using our own internal guidance system to navigate with, instead of doing the prescribed thing, the in the box thing, the thing that we're supposed to do to be good humans. It will naturally be a good human if we're following our heart. And so it would be nice if we were doing more for our children of allowing that to stay intact, their connection to what is and how they operate to stay intact as they grow and learn, rather than training them to have to know so much, you know, to study and to be ahead of it. And that goes back to how I began this talk, which was when I talked about how I like to navigate, and how it was feeling a little bit more difficult to navigate that way. And that's because what was coming up to be healed for me right now are the misunderstanding of how I were to operate in the face of needing to be vulnerable. That I had a misunderstanding that my vulnerability when strategized was still did still count for vulnerability, and it doesn't. Can't be strategically vulnerable. Yeah, it's just manipulation. So I'm not saying I'm a terrible human. I live and learn, right? Moving on, understanding. Um, if I'm meant to have the conversation in the future, I'll have the conversation in the future. Um, but really understanding and seeing now what life was trying to show me in the last few days, where I felt so ungrounded, and I felt like I was being like not supported in a way. And that's because the universe isn't going to support us in our manipulations and strategies always. You know, like if we get the support, sometimes it's like a pattern that's just locking us in or tantalizing us away from something, or, you know, playing on one of our insecurities. And that was playing on one of my insecurities, which was like, you know, the fact that I was not willing to be courageous um, with a conversation that I needed to have with another person. And yeah, so the mythology was used to clue me in, uh, you know, because those are archetypal energies. So those were able to clue me into the storyline. And then I got, you know, that mixed in with my actual experience to understand what the energy was trying to show me. I would not have read that energy willingly. These tools that I use to help me focus in on to read that energy were very helpful. And now that I've read it, it makes perfect sense. I totally understand, and I understand that is what I was missing. And I see how it's so subtle. I didn't even know that it was so important for me to make that distinction, but it is, and it's so important that it affects what I'm here to do. Oh, I just got a whole other thing, but just think about that. If it affects what I'm here to do, it's because I can't be tuned. I can't be bringing. Okay, so just like parents ideally would allow the child to be free to navigate and allow their heart-based intentions and desires to come through, I don't want to pass along any of my manipulation tactics, like that mother who was fake crying to get the reaction of her baby to comfort her. Like that baby is now not tuned to the real vibration of real crying, of real pain. So there's like a separation between what the baby sees and what the baby actually feels, because energy doesn't lie. And then I was thinking about how this kind of plays out in life, where it's like we're watching a movie or we're watching a play and we know those are actors. So consciously and logically we can understand that this is not a real emotion that's happening in real time. Usually some of them are using memories to evoke real emotion, and sometimes we can not even be conscious of what that emotion is, but it will catch us in the feels. But we may misread it because it's blurry because of the way we're trained up to not be so in tune with the nuanced vibration of what it is to be in pain, what it is to cry, what it is to be betrayed, what it is to feel insecure, what it is to feel insecure about vanity versus insecure about somebody's ability to be more important than us. Like those are all subtle, different vibrations, and they feel different, right? So on one hand, we are dulled out in a lot of ways from really discerning and being able to navigate. But on the other hand, it's understandable that it's happened because if we were to tune into everything all at once, we wouldn't really have all the experiences that we have. Some of the experiences that we have do come from the fact that we are, led with blinders and only see this much. So we're looking at the perspective of this part. It's like this prism, and we're just looking at this one facet. So we all together, can get the bigger picture view, but because we are fragmented and boxed in and told what to do, and maybe like blinded from understanding what the actual vibration of real pain feels like versus fake pain, you know, if we're not tuned into that, then we can experience it as if it is real, but then our perspective becomes of from the angle of that. And this serves us in some way, because if we are looking through a specific facet of the prism, like our perspective is a study of that facet. And that is another reason why all people's perspectives are valid, and it's sort of silly to use our pride to make the person who doesn't believe like us and think like us the enemy. However, it's also the experience of the facet that has the pride being utilized in that way and shaping their perspective in that way. So none of it's invalid is kind of what I'm saying, but we are in control of all of it. And when we have learned what we want to learn, like if we've learned, okay, this perspective is one of suffering. I sort of hate the feeling of being in this perspective. It's very helpful to, tune into what somebody else's perspective is, to expand your awareness so that you know that even though you saw it this one way, there's a whole nother way to see it. So you can start to see a bigger picture view, right? You pull your awareness out a bit. So you're like, oh, now I see. So I'm not saying any of it's wrong or right. I guess I'm just talking about it in ways that you can kind of see what I mean when I say like why you would or would not want to tune to certain ways and what it is to allow and the reasons why we haven't allowed and how it's okay, but how we may come to a point where we really do want to allow and get back to heart based, because we do see that there is a lot of suffering caused when we do cut the heart out of it. And I think enough people for enough time have experienced what that is to know that it's not desirable, that it's that it causes us to be unhappy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the suffering of the world and war and blah blah blah. The realization where we can get to the point where we're looking at a point of view that's a bit bigger than our own facet of the prism allows us to realize the futility of war and how it's not needed anymore. It's not, I won't say it's not needed anymore, because if it wasn't needed anymore, it wouldn't be, right? I'm going to say it's not wanted anymore. Yeah, the bigger picture view allows you to see that you don't want war anymore. Because you kind of start to see that, oh, that person is part of me. They're my humanity. I like when they flow through their heart. I like when I flow through my heart. Resting. All right, that's all for now. Thank you for tuning in.